All right. Hey, what's up, guys? Wanted to talk over an interesting topic here today for our webinar this week, or this month rather. And what we're going to be talking about is ultra high net worth staff. We focused originally on nannies and how we can integrate nannies into the protective ecosystem, if you will. But then we decided to kind of expand that into other staff as well, because that's really important too. So we'll talk a little bit about all of these and the training specifically and SOPs and whatnot and how that all works. So this has come from Christian and I over our experiences of dealing with staff and some nuances that occur when you're dealing with, especially for an ultra high net worth client, all of their staff, estate managers and administrative assistants and family office managers and everybody else that person deals with, and then trying to work with those individuals, and they've got the information that you need half the time. So how does that work? How does that all come into play? And we'll just talk about some of those nuances, and hopefully you guys can chime in as well, have some comments, answer some questions and give some feedback as well. So again, Christian and I this month talked about integrating ultra high net worth staff into training and SOPs for protective teams. So we'll get right into it, guys. First thing that we wanted to talk about here was the why. Obviously, that's the most important thing. So when we have particularly, again, this is in context of an ultra high net worth client, why should we work with anybody else? Their task is not necessarily to protect that person. Our task is. So then why do we need to work with other people, other staff members? So again, guys, chime in whenever you want. If you throw it to the chat, I'm monitoring that to keep the discussion going. And also I'll just keep going unless you have any questions or comments. But why do we need to work with the principal's staff? One thing is, and one thing that we really focus on with ESL, with executive support and logistics, is we want to provide services that the client feels as easy to live with. And we've come up with that phrase. We've tried to make it better and better over time, and we just can't, so it's just such a good phrase. We provide services that are easy to live with. The client sees are easy to live with. They're convenient. They're not impactful to what they're trying to do. They actually facilitate their daily life and what they're trying to do. So that simple phrase that we provide services that are comprehensive, effective, and easy to live with. And how do we do that? How do we make services easy to live with? Guys, if we're providing security, the best way to keep someone secure is to secure the house and never let them out of it. We can't do that. We need to support what they're doing day to day. We need to support their kids going to school. We need to support everything that's going on with these individuals. So obviously we can't do that. That's just ridiculous. So how do we fit in with their entire life? And I think that's kind of hard for a lot of us to see. It is hard for me to see. When I started out, I had to constantly kind of step back and look at their life in total and see, what are their habits? What do they like to do? What do they need to do? What type of places do they like going to? Who do they deal with the most? Who do they particularly like the most and why? Who do they give the most responsibility to? Who do they task with important things? And those people are the people that you want to start, gaining their trust and respect and working with them closely, because those are the people closest to the client. I'll say this, guys. One of the things I've realized is don't underestimate somebody else's relationship with the client. You might come on as, a protective detail lead or what have you. And, you think you're very important to the principal. But say, for example, one client I was dealing with, the EA, she ended up being great to work with. But in the beginning, she was a little, rough around the edges, chip on her shoulder. She was holding a lot of information. She was making it difficult for us to work with her. And we kind of fought that and tried not working with her. Then come to find out she's been the client's EA for 19 years. So if somebody sticks around with a ultra high net worth person for 19 years, I can guarantee you they're not going anywhere easily, and probably not at all. Okay. So, you better figure out a way to work with that person. So don't underestimate the other relationships that person has. You might be, the least important in their eyes and their perspective, part of their ecosystem. Their financial manager might be more important to them than you. Their, family office manager, any of the other individuals. What about the nanny with their kids? Their kids like their nanny and the kids don't like you. Well, you're easily replaced and the nanny's not. So just understand that concept. I want to make sure that you guys are very clear on that. It's something that I find people make mistakes of. I certainly have. So give you some insight into why this is so important. Okay.
Well,
So creating that harmony in the client's ecosystem, as I call it, is very important. And the big thing that we're going to talk about over the next couple of slides is the consistency and continuity of protection is only achieved through this collaboration. We cannot be with the client all the time, and we certainly cannot know everything that's going on with the client all the time. The only way we can do that is if we work with these other individuals that know the things that we don't and are with them when we're not. And so that way, if we integrate them into what we're doing, if they understand our processes of keeping them secure, safe, free from embarrassment, and facilitating their timelines and itineraries, if they know how we do things, they can do it as well. And they can kind of fit into that when we're not there. And then they can also support us with the information that we need that we don't have that they do. So it's just a big picture thing here, guys. You got to just, swallow your pride a little bit and understand that, you're not the most important part of the puzzle, and look at the big picture of everything that the client's got going on. So,
and Joe, if I can jump in with some comments here. Christian West here, hosting the seminars with Joe. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that a lot of times we feel like people don't want to work with us, or they don't holding information back and stuff like that. And one of the things I found out was we take for granted that a lot of these people know how we work because they have seen it, but they don't always know the order of how we do things, or why it's important to do in advance, or why it's important we get a heads up if we need the cars or whatever. So on the nanny side, you can look at it like this. One, the nanny is a trusted member of the family. We're kind of an outsider looking in because we take care of the perimeter when they're home. The nanny is invited into their home. She can be one of the biggest advocates that you have for the security program if you win her over and understand what it is that we're doing. And if she gets to understand what it is that we're doing, she can also be a tremendous help in planning all the things that she does with the kid, right? And that is super important. So I think just to end that off, Joe, that what you touched on with being important of being having the nanny on your side and getting out of the whole thing of being hard to work with. It's important that we already early go in and try to influence the nannies and show them what we do and show how we make value, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So just big picture, guys. Look at the big picture. Look at everything that client is going on. Christian mentioned the nannies, for example. I can guarantee you that if the kids like the nannies and the clients are happy with that, then they're going to win any sort of battle or any sort of confrontation or anything that might come from that. So make sure that there is none. Make sure that they know how we work and they can work with us. They can support us. Christian mentioned like letting them know, why we need to know about vehicles and where they're going and all these kinds of things. People feel respected when you explain the why to them. And we tend to, like Christian said, we tend to think that, everybody kind of knows what we're doing and kind of lets us do our thing. Well, not really, again, that's just not the case. Anybody that's ever been involved in EP training knows what I'm talking about. Like people come to EP training and they have an idea of what EP is. And it's certainly, the majority it's not what they think. And so most people think EP is one thing, but they don't really know what it is. So kind of enlighten them a little bit. I'm not saying sit them down and sit them through a PowerPoint. But what I'm saying is people feel empowered and respected when you explain the why to them. So if you explain, this is what we need, but really here's why. Does that make sense? Okay, please, share that with us, etc. And they feel empowered, connected, involved. And that's really important is just making them feel respected and involved. And, you don't have to give them every little detail of what you're doing, but it's kind of like commander's intent. When you tell somebody to do something, if you tell them what to do, all they can do is exactly what you said. But if you tell them what to do and why, then they can do what you said and further support what you need, because now they understand the why. So that's just some takeaway there too. So good stuff. So again, guys, the why is because of the big picture, right? The big picture. We got to fit into the big picture. We specifically talked about nannies. We've had a lot of things come from this, where nannies are some of the most important people in the kids' lives. A lot of times the nannies basically raise the kids, and they are the ones that take the kids to school, pick them up from school, take them to, other events and parties and birthday parties and play dates and whatever else. And, think about it. If you are responsible for protecting the client and their family, this person often drives the kids by, themselves. Well, then, how can we incorporate them into what we do and what we know, and even training, and see how we can, again, create that consistency, that continuity of protection? Because if we don't, and this person takes the kids somewhere and they don't know, SOPs, they don't know emergency controls, emergency plans, they don't know what to do if they haven't been trained in security driving, for example, then we lose that consistency and continuity. One of the things I said previously was there's no way we could know everything about what's going on with the client and their family. And that holds true here, because there's no way you're going to know what's going on with the kids at any given moment. You're not going to know what after school activities they have, whose birthday party is it this weekend, and all these things. And so if you don't include that person and make them feel involved and respected in what they do, then they're not going to include you, and certainly not going to make you feel included and respected. And you're not going to know those things. So it just, getting back to those two words I said in the first slide, consistency and continuity of protection, is all created by involving and working together with everybody that's in the principal's life, especially somebody as important as one of the nannies. Okay. Anything there, Christian?
No, I think you can look at it like nannies can have a lot of intelligence for you too that you might not have, like you said, but they're also the first that might know about vacations. They might know about, I had a client who told us about, the nanny told us about that the clients had been talking about doing a road trip because they wanted to do it with their kids, right? Something that's relatively hard to plan for and you need more time, right? But a lot of times you can look at it like your own family a little bit. If you guys want to do something surprise for your kids this weekend, or you want to do something special, it's a lot of times the same with our principals. But you probably won't know about it because you're on the perimeter. So if the nanny is your best friend, you'll probably know about it early, especially if you get her to understand what it is that we're trying to achieve, right? The other thing, and I don't know if this is the right time, but then please stop me if it's not, Joe. But the other thing that's also important when you talk about the nannies is that they're also the ones that should understand what you're doing, so you don't get into doing stuff you don't want to do or you're not supposed to do, right?
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things that's super important that I always had is the whole thing of, if you go to the playground and you're covering the kids, the nanny is with the kids for a reason. So if the nanny turns around and say, hey, can you take the boy to the bathroom while I go with the girl? My initial thought when I was a young agent would be, yeah, sure, I can take it. I got kids myself. How hard can it be? But when you really think about it, do you really want to go to the bathroom with a kid that's not your own? Isn't it better to say, hey, I'll keep the kid here, and when you come back, I can watch the girl while you take the little boy to the bathroom, right? Stuff like that. And it's super important that the nannies kind of understand that mindset of thinking. And if you don't explain it and you don't kind of like sit down and talk about how are we going to work this in practice, they might accidentally be the one that kind of, I wouldn't say throw you under the bus, but get you to do stuff that you rather not want to put yourself into position that you would have to kind of like put your foot down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that's great with that is, I was kind of laughing as you were talking through that is whenever somebody asks you to do something to help them, an easy way out of it is, kind of pump them up a little bit and like, let them know that like that's their whole job and there's no way you could do that as good as they do. You know what I mean? So it's like one of those things where, it's all about, I actually learned that from that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is, you keep other people interested and engaged by being interested, engaged in what they do. And if somebody asks you, "Hey, can you help me do this?" Be like, "Oh, wow, there's no way I could do that for you. I mean, that's your thing. I can't replace you on that." I'm saying it very simply, but you can use
No,
that
absolutely. Yeah.
to get around it, so to speak. So, yeah, good stuff. And going back to your point, Christian, with the intelligence that somebody might know something that you don't. I like what somebody said here in the chat. They said in the Air Force, there's a saying: "Every airman is a sensor." And if you look at that, every person can see something, say something, and that's exactly true. So you can use these other individuals as sensors for you. What did they hear? What did they pick up? What do they know? Not in a sneaky way, but that's definitely something you can leverage. So
No, plus there's also the whole thing of when you take, let's use the totally simple example of you pick up and drive the nanny and the kids and drop them off so they can go to the playground. You park the car somewhere or somebody else parked the car and you jump out of the car to provide coverage. And typically we all say, well, I'm going to give him some distance because this is a relatively safe space. But the minute you give him distance, you're also outside of the nanny's bubble and you become weird, right? Because these days
yeah,
we all pay so much attention to a guy like me lurking around a playground or whatever. And I know everybody can smile of it, but when you think about it, most of you guys can pick out fellow protectors. Most of you guys pay attention to if you're good at your security awareness, you pay attention of things that stand out, right? Meaning that other nannies and protective moms and whatever might pick up on me walking around the playground for 2 hours or whatever it is that I'm doing, right? So a lot of times I get the whole thing of creating distance and whatever, but a great exercise that I've done several times to get the nannies involved is to ask them and say, hey, when I walk around here, do I look right? Do I stand out? Can you give me a hint? Can I come over and talk to you for 5, 10 minutes? Is it okay I sit in the car? If you play on this side of the playground, I can actually see what you guys are doing from the car. So I don't have to get outside and do all of that stuff, right? And by involving them into the protective circle, all of a sudden they're the ones who give you intel of what weird people said or who are the other people in the park. Maybe you come with a client that's not that high a risk, but they play next to a family and they have kids and they have a way higher risk profile than you do. That would be nice for you to know, right? But if you don't know the other nannies and the other kids, it can be really hard for you to figure out. And the only way to figure that out is actually to have a great dialogue with the nanny that is with the kids on the playground.
yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. It makes me think, just little things. I had I carry little backup radios. They're little cheapy radios, very small, very easy to carry. And so if we're using, push to talk over cellular or anything else, we have these little backup UHF radios. And, one of the things that I used to do is keep those for people that I might need to give a radio to and just say, here, just keep this in case, that way they don't have to, if something happens, they need me real quick. They don't have to pick up their cell phone and remember my number or contact and dial me or whatever. They can just, radio me real quick. And just having something like that allows you to build that space. I can say, here, just keep this with you while you go on the playground and I'll be over there, kind of thing. So many ways we can tie them into, what we do. But I think that's really funny. I got a picture in here actually of someone sticking out pretty good. And so it's funny you mentioned that, Christian. So let's talk about training, guys. So training for staff members. This one specifically mentions nannies in the slide, but other staff members, what might they need to know? What might they not need to have training on, but what might be very beneficial if they do have that training? One of them, as we listed here first, is security driving. So, common question is, why do people need training and driving if they're a safe driver, they drive every day. Well, there's so much more to it than that. That just shows you that you've never been to a good driving course. So make sure that we, embrace the driver training. That is one of the most dangerous things that the average person does every day or most days, is just get behind the wheel or get into a car. Guys, by the numbers, that is the most dangerous thing that most people do in the US, is just get into a car. It doesn't seem like it because we do it all the time, but look at the numbers. That is the most dangerous thing that we do. So most of us. So that is absolutely something that the nannies could easily take part in. Put them through a day driving course that goes over the basics of how to control a vehicle in an evasive situation. No, they don't need to learn J turns and all this. They just need to learn how to, little things like one of the exercises we put them through is, drive at a high speed and slam on the brakes as hard as you can and bring that vehicle to a stop as quickly as you can, as short of a distance as you can. And most people have never done that before. It's as simple as that. Most people have never done that before. They've never gone fast and literally just slammed on the brakes as hard as they can to stop that vehicle. Why would you do that to your own vehicle? Why would you do that in a normal driving day? You only need to do that to avoid a severe accident in which you can actually hit the brakes and avoid it. And that's very rare. Most people have never done that before. So there you go. There's one thing that we can do to, make it safer for people to be in the vehicle with somebody that drives them to school, from school, to birthday parties, everything else. So it's just a simple thing, guys. Security driving. Another one that's very, very useful and could be useful every day, any day, is first aid and medical response training. So those things, we typically like to do them kind of hand in hand, train nannies and other people how to drive vehicles. And when they have some downtime, we'll do some medical training. It's a great thing to do. And just the basic first aid, the cuts, boo-boos, bites, kinds of things. But then the severe trauma as well. We don't need to get into how to secure a gunshot patient for 45 minutes for a helo extraction. We don't need to get into that. But what we need to cover is, massive bleeds. What if somebody cuts themselves really bad? What if somebody breaks a limb? And, how do we handle those things? And what gear do we need? So the basic medical training, again, a good day goes a long way. Okay. So much beyond just the basic first aid, CPR, AED, but, nothing crazy. They don't have to be, paramedics in most cases to support most children, but it should have some basic medical training. So another thing is situational awareness training, something that they can go through that there's some really good online courses on situational awareness training, and that really helps out, just teaches people how to stay aware and when to stay aware. Primarily, that's the main thing. We all know how to be aware of our environments, but we just kind of don't know when we should be. And it kind of teaches you how to stay in the yellow, so to speak, of how to stay in that cautious, situationally aware, circumstance that we're actually paying attention to what's going on around us. Okay? Cybersecurity. This one is a touchy one, and this is actually a good one, kind of like what Chris and I were just talking about getting somebody to do something that you don't really want to do. And so it's a very, very awkward thing to tell, especially a client's child or the client themselves, that their child or anybody on the principal's family, it's anybody that you're protecting, is doing something they shouldn't be doing online. It's an awkward conversation to have. So if we kind of pass that off to the nannies or other staff, that we teach them how to be aware of cyber issues and things that could be going on with that child or protectee's phone, we could, one, take care of the problem, but two, pass it off so we don't have to deal with it, and it doesn't have to be our problem to bring up to the client. And lastly on this slide, guys, is what do these individuals need to know to help us in case of an emergency? For example, what SOPs they need to be aware of, who to contact, what to do in case, just the basics, just the very basics. We don't need to go through rehearsals with them or anything else, but they need to know the basics of, what happens if, what if there's an attack? What if there's a medical emergency? What if there's a fire? What if the power goes out? All of these basic things, we just need to cover those things with them and let them know. It gives them that confidence. And again, it makes them feel, included and respected. And that way they will be more collaborative. All right.
And
Good
I
stuff.
mean, Joe, it also depends a little bit. And there's one thing that we sometimes have an easy time forgetting, and that is that most of the people that we work for, they have everything and they have the opportunity to get and buy everything. So one of the problems that we a lot of times have as an EP agent is that we like to decline stuff as it's not being needed. So if I have to tell a really quick story about kids and a family that I used to work for, where they became parents for the first time, and of course they became parents for the first time, that comes with the same questions and insecurities and whatever else as it did for you guys when you became parents for the first time. But as soon as you're a billionaire, the options of what to do is bigger, right? And it's the first time I meet this guy who has specialized in doing child seat training for household staff and security agents. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's bullshitting us. How hard can it be to put in a child seat? I've done it, and it's absolutely not a problem. Why do we need training in this? And I kind of tried to fight it, but the mom overruled me, and we ended up doing the training. And I was thinking to myself, what a waste of time and money. I go and work for another family, and I end up meeting the same guy again. And I'm still kind of like trying to grasp my head around it until a more experienced agent pull me aside and go, Christian, why do you care? Think about it for a second. The minute that they hire an outsider to come in and teach your agent this, you have kind of avoided that liability because we got the training from somebody else. It's not on you. Why would you fight it? You're not paying for it. Accept it, embrace it if they want to put it on you, right? And it's one of those things where when you look at kids and nannies and whatever, you can only have an opinion about your own kids. You can't have an opinion about having too much training for this. Why would you, right? There's so much other stuff people can do. A lot of people saying that, oh, we don't really need a driver training. I think it's super important that the nannies get driver training. They should even have training in driving in the rain and the snow. Because when you think about it, they drive the principal's kids around. It's probably the most precious thing they own in the world, right? Why wouldn't you suggest putting them through it? And the same on the whole cyber side. One thing is making sure that the family members, the kids, and everybody else doesn't do anything stupid online. Well, there should also be some awareness for the nanny that she doesn't do something stupid online. So somebody could go in with superior emotional intelligence and maybe figure out information, figure out logistics, and maybe set up something really bad, or maybe just go in and hack the family account because she wasn't aware on how to stay safe online, right? So there's so much training you can put in there. And this goes for any of the members of the principal staff. It's the chefs, it's the wardrobe managers, it's the speech writers, it's whatever they have. We need to make sure that all of them knows the basic security, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's it's a funny story about the child seat training, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Have somebody else do it, and
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that guy found
absolutely.
a niche and he's making money doing it, and why not, right?
Good for him. But like you said, have somebody else come in and do it. That's what I like about it. Like, why
Yeah.
worry about it if somebody else? It's on somebody else now. So, here's the picture I was talking about. One of my guys at a party, and sticking out a little bit. So this is kind of like what you're talking about, Christian. Like you might
Oh,
want to ask that
absolutely.
nanny, be like, "Hey, am I sticking out already?" And then what I
Yeah,
always
yeah,
say is, if you have to ask, you probably are. Like if you, I always say your threshold for that, your awkwardness threshold needs to be very low. If you ever feel like you're being awkward, you're awkward.
yeah.
So he was actually doing a good job here. That's what they wanted. Outward, outside rather presence. So, but the picture is funny because it looks, like kids' pool party, and then I've got my guy here standing by with his tattoos barely covered, and with his sling bag and everything else, right? I think is that
Oh,
is that
yeah.
one of your sling bags, Aaron? Probably. But yeah, just funny to see it. But anyway, so talking about training and how do we Going back to that first slide, guys, that when I summed this up in that first slide, I said that the continuity and the consistency of protection, we can't do it unless we have these individuals working with us. So imagine if you're going to a kid's birthday party and they say, yeah, just, wait outside. And what if it's not a gate you can see through, a fence you can see through, and you're waiting outside, you can't see anything, and you're just waiting outside? Did you bring an extra radio? Can they call you really quick, or do they have to get to their phones and then get you, to come and do whatever you need to do? Um, are they aware of how to handle that? So, including them in basic training, basic SOPs, again, it just creates that continuity and allows us to be better at the overall risk mitigation, because we can't be there all the time. It allows us to be more effective, more efficient, more comprehensive. And there it is, easy to live with, right, guys? It keeps it easy to live with because we can't be there all the time, for one thing, and the clients don't want us there all the time. It's as simple as that. So if they don't want us there all the time, we're not going to be there all the time, because we want to make sure that our services are easy to live with. So uh, that's how it kind of all wraps up, is make sure that we're working with these other individuals, so that way they can be basically trained, basically informed on how to work with us, so that way we can keep it all together. All right. And they can be those extra sensors out there. But that was the picture I was talking about, Christian. I thought that'd be funny.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. And I see what you're saying, if that's what the family kind of want. And when you stand out like that, it's almost better, right? Because everybody kind of have an idea that this guy's a security guy. The worst part are the people who tries to be undercover, but they're
Yeah.
not undercover, right? Because that
Yeah.
gives you the attention of being suspicious. At least
Yep.
this is suspicious. You can argue if the security is too much or too little. It doesn't matter if that's what the family kind of chose and the image that they want. It's not for us to judge, right? And it's actually one of the things I always hate, when people judge security based on pictures that they've seen online, or when they do it based on videos that we've seen. Yeah, we all have an opinion about what looks right and what looks
Yep.
wrong, but at the end of the day, we don't know what went on that day, right? So unless we do,
Right.
maybe we sometimes should stop with the negative comments, but that's a different seminar than this one, I guess. All
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
right.
So, guys, team effort is what it's about. Protecting anybody that has a complicated lifestyle in particular. So if they have a complicated lifestyle, they travel a lot, they're too busy, they've got nannies taking care of the kids while they're off doing work, and they go on family vacations all the time, and their kids go to fancy schools and whatever, all these things. We have a situation right now that we're dealing with, an overseas family that's sending their children to an Ivy League school here. And so how do we maintain coverage doing that? It's complicated. And the only way you can make it work is if you integrate yourself and understand the big picture, the big team effort of working with estate managers, nannies, everything else. We focus on nannies on this in a lot of context here. But understand, guys, if you're on the RST, you better be very tight with that estate manager. So it's not just nannies we're talking about here. It's all of their staff, and understanding that they have their responsibilities, we have ours. How can we make them, how can we make those overlaps seamless? Okay. To maintain that continuity and consistency of protection. That's what it comes down to. So, guys, unless Christian, you have anything else to throw in there, guys, if you have any questions, but
yeah, I had one thing I wanted to kind of say, and to use some other examples. If you work with a family that have a yacht, well, you should definitely work with the boat captain and the chief of staff for the boat, and whatever. Think about it. If people know that the family is coming to that boat, boats are great because they offer a lot of privacy, but boats are also horrible because you're trapped in one place all the time, right? Think about the estate managers. They work with the landscapers, they work with the contractors, they work with all of these people. And a lot of times we're very focused on who comes onto the property. I get it. Yes, they need to sign in, they need to sign out. A lot of them probably look a little suspicious if we live in a really high-end neighborhood. So we focus a lot on it. But what if you turn it around and once in a while chat these guys up and go, so what's going on in the neighborhood? And one of them say, yeah, it's really funny. We do landscaping for 10 other people in this community. And did you hear there was a break-in, or did you see what happened here and there, right? No, I did not, because it hadn't been in the news. Oh yeah, no, they didn't go to the police with it. But you get the information from the landscapers. If you just wrote him off and say, we don't really mix with these people, you don't get anything out of it, right? Maybe the estate manager kind of know the other estate managers. Maybe he knows who moved in down the street, who has that big detail outside that kind of annoys you a little bit because it draws a lot of attention to your principal all of a sudden, right? So I think it's very important that, yes, we wrote this blog about nannies, and that's because we had a bunch of nanny training going on and stuff like that. So it was an easy one. But you could, in theory, write this blog and do this topic on anybody who works in the circle of the principal, and they should all have the same training, and they should all be part of the security bubble, just like you should be part of their work. If you see water is running from a pipe or there's a bad sprinkler, of course you would tell the estate manager that so they could get it fixed, right? You wouldn't just let the water run. That's part of what we do. Well, if you give him room, if he sees the same suspicious car all the time outside, and you kind of encourage him to tell you if he sees something, he probably will. And that's going to give you a better security bubble. That was kind of what I had on that one, Joe.
Yeah, it's awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
So yeah, guys, hope you appreciated the little webinar here, just on these little topics. But chime in on social media about what topics that are good to talk about, and we're happy to write the blogs and do the webinars on them. That's kind of what we're doing on our own pace, on what we think is important and trending, and what should be developed further in the industry. And we've had a lot of friction points with this one, and a lot of good successes with this topic. So we wanted to share that with you guys. So again, guys, appreciate you logging on and checking us out here. Sign up for the newsletter if you haven't, so you can stay up to date and track us online. But good stuff, guys. Appreciate you coming out. And if you have any questions, I'll leave it up for a second. Throw them in the chat. But we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.